All right, so if I'm looking at a graph, you want to be able to convert it to a table. So what I want you to do is be able to create an XY table. And X and Y represent the points that are on the graph. And you always want to look for these points that are right on a corner. All right. And it doesn't matter which points you pick, it doesn't really even matter the order in which you pick them. So I'm going to start with this one right here because it's an easy one to see it crosses. And X is 0 and Y is 2. So 1 point on this line is 0, 2. This is kind of in the middle, so I'm not exactly sure what that is, but this point is right on the corner. So I'm going to go 2, and it looks like the Y value is 3. So 2 and 3. So another point on this line is 2 and 3. Another point on this line, I'm not going to pick this one. I'm going to pick this one. It's right on the corner there. Looks like 4 and 4. I'm actually going to pick another line, a point back here, just because there is a point back here. And it looks like when X is -2, Y is 1. So when X is -2, Y is 1. Now, what this tells me is a bunch of things. You can look at this and realize, well, first of all, I realize this person had a head start, right? They didn't start at the fence if this was a race, because it doesn't start at 0, 0, because at time 0, he was already at 2 feet. Now, what we can do here is we can find the slope, because remember what we did in class is we were able to look at the graph and count boxes and say he, went up 1 and he went over 2. All right, but what you can do here is you can do the same thing mathematically. You can look at the Y value, which is always the rise, right? Sometimes we call it the rise, make it a our YSE to remind us that's the Y value. And then the run is the X value. So here, if you can look at this, to go from 2 to 3, you go up 1, and to go from 0 to 2, you go up 2, and there's my slope, 1 over 2. All right, so the slope of 1/2. You also could do kind of a crazy one. Go from this point, 2 comma 3, which is right here, to this point, which is -2 comma 1, and you should still get 1/2. Well, what happened here? From here, 3 to 1, I actually went down 2, right? 3 to 1 is going down 2. And then from 2 to -2, you should realize is actually 4, right? Because 2 to 0 is 2. Then I go down 2 more, so that's 4. So instead of the rise being 1 and the run being 2, I can actually say the rise is -2 and the run is -4. But if you remember, 2 over 4 is the same thing as 1/2, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So you can take a graph, make it a table by writing the points, and then from there, finding the slope. So you can find the slope using the kind of that triangle rise and run like we did in class, or you can look at the table and do the rise and the run from the table, okay? So let's do um, one more here. Let me clear my annotations. So now this one, again, I want to make an XY table, and I'm just going to make some points from there. So I'll always start with this one because that's nice. 0, comma 4. All right. Then I look over here, 1, comma 1. Right. Looks like that's a point right on the line there. 1, 1. And how about this one? X is 2, Y is -2. We'll get another point. And see, this one doesn't cross perfectly. This one doesn't cross perfectly, but it looks like this one crosses really nice. When X is 3, Y is -5. So let's see if we can find what the slope is. Now, again, we could find 2 nice points and draw a triangle like we did here, or we can look at this, right? And look at the change in Y over the change in X, right? How is Y changing? Remember, slope is all about change, and X is changing here. So from 4 to 1, I can just kind of do that in my head. 4 minus 1. I know that's 3. And from 0 to 1, I could say 0 minus 1. I know that that's -1, right? Because I'm just finding the difference between these two and finding the difference between these two. And I have my rise and my run. And we know it's rise over run. And it looks like the change is 3 over -1. What's another way to do that? 3 divided by 1 is 3. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So -3 is my slope, or -3 over 1. They mean the same thing. I could have also went to my graph and realized, oh, it goes down 1, 2, 3 over 1. So here I could say my rise was -3, my run was -1. Looks a little different than this, but mathematically, doesn't matter where the negative sign is. 3 divided by -1 is -3, or -3 divided by 1 is also -3. So the slope here is at -3. And I can tell a couple of things, right? I can tell from the table, I can tell from the graph. I did not start at the fence. I had a head start because it didn't start at 0, 0. And it does look like as time is increasing, distance is decreasing, all right? As opposed to this number 1 problem, as time was increasing, distance was also increasing. So that's why you had that positive 1/2 slope. And here you have a negative because as time is increasing, distance is decreasing.